What if we combined Orks, Star Wars, and Christmas?
Is it possible to learn this power?
Well, Mr. Modulork has done that, and I'm going to be bringing that creation to life. It's a giant Ork ATAT with horns. Isn't it cute?
Hello there.
Now, this was a big project to undertake, and it's finally ready to show off just a few days late of Christmas.
Missed it by that much.
Let's get into slicing. Now, there are a lot of files for this models because there are a lot of parts, but also it's quite customizable. You can print it as a closed body or have different balconies or have openings for models to stand on. I opted for an open body, but a closed roof and back, but you can have like a back veranda and then like almost this kind of stage on top of the body where things can stand. Fortunately, there are diagrams and pictures to help you get an idea of what parts go where and what to print. This print only took 3 full build plates on my Saturn II. I'm so glad I've got like a mid-sized printer now. And then I had to print a 4th plate to print any like some missing parts that I just didn't realize I needed. If I tried printing this out on my first printer, the Hallett 1, it would have probably taken like 10 to 12 prints.
Look at this build plate. Like it's basically almost 3, but about 2.5 times the size.
I'll put a rough estimation of the resin I used and the total print time up on the screen. Now, printing.
This is where the fun begins.
Printing, everything printed out really nice. I didn't have any fails, which I was very surprised about. It could have been the great files, wink wink, by Mr. Modulork, but it could have also just been, we're heading into summer now, the garage is getting warmer, and it's great temperatures for 3D printing, or for resin anyway. I think it's still good for FDM. The support removal was pretty easy, and cleaning was just, yeah, kind of standard. It did make me think though, do I need a second wash and cure station just for curing? I spent a lot of time like loading up the spinning plate, flipping stuff over, loading it up again. You just got to wait while it's curing. So if I had 2, it'd obviously double that speed.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
Now, assembly, this was pretty straightforward, and I just followed the pictures. There was a little, I guess, like warping or just deviation from the printing, so things didn't line up 100%, and that was just mainly the joints at the top of the body. Everything else kind of clicks into place on the body and the torso, so it's pretty good, and there's some like little filler pieces that like help, I don't know, guide the pieces and hold them into place. Even the legs were pretty easy. It was just kind of tricky getting them onto the base, so I kind of left them unglued at the like socket joint to the hip, if that's what it's called, and so the legs could kind of move along that joint and just kind of get them into the right place. And then with the gaps I had, I just filled them in with baking powder and super glue, kind of giving that like messy orc welded effect, if you will. Now I assembled most of this on stream, and you can catch me streaming every so often. It's probably just going to be painting, model assembling, and some random battle reports when I just feel up for it. So yeah, let me know if there's anything you'd like me to stream. I primed all the pieces before assembling. You probably would have noticed that. And I also did paint the interior of the model just because I thought that would be very difficult to try get those areas once it was assembled. For the body, I just used my airbrush, starting with a red and then a red-orange mix to kind of give like a small gradient. If you're interested in the Gaahleri Airbrush, you can check out the description. I went in with a sponge with a bright red and then slowly repeated that process, working my way up from like a red-orange to an orange and a tiny bit of yellow to build up those highlights. The goblin on top of the turret was a repeated process from a goblin tank I've painted in the past. I wish I had attached that goblin separately before I painted it, as I'm so used to manipulating models and having my brush always pretty much at the same angle, whereas I had to kind of move the brush around to get the angle right. This model's just like too big to pick up and move around. The metallics, I just used a combination of silver, bronze, and gold, and then just kind of gave them all a wash with a brown speed paint, treating that like, yeah, just a wash, just kind of tone it down and make it look a bit weathered. For the base, I just enlarged a current base file that I already had. I also added some extra supports in the middle in case the weight of the model made PLA base bend, but it should be fine. I'm not going to bother trying to magnetize the base, is what I usually do with the other ones. Now, I stupidly attached the model to the base before finishing the base, and what I should have done was just kind of mark out the feet and then finish off the base. And 2 reasons is it's just a lot easier to paint because the legs get in the way when it's attached. The other reason is the whole model just casts a big shadow on the base, which sounds kind of silly, obviously, but you kind of need to get your light in there so you can see what you've actually painted and what's actually happening. No, originally I tried to pin the model to the base, but that didn't work, so I just ended up using milliput and a whole bunch of super glue. Fingers crossed that holds, and I don't just have a crashed AT-AT as I'm moving it around. For the base, I used a mixture of texture paint, sand, and gravel. I also put some bark across the middle to make it look like it was a fallen tree. I then painted over the browns with progressive highlights getting up to a tan. I 3D printed some trees to add to the base as well, just to kind of add some more variation, just like some logs. Then I added 2 base readies. So these are Geek Gaming Scenics base readies. I don't know what they are. It's like Hill and I can't remember. But basically I didn't put it across the whole base is what I usually do for models. Like I just cover the whole thing in PVA glue and dunk it. I just put PVA glue in certain parts and just like sprinkled it on with my fingers, just kind of adding to the patches. I really think with the brown highlighted ground underneath and then these patches of these different base readies, it really just makes it look like this woodland or jungle floor. I then mix some PVA glue and water in a spray bottle and spray that over these base readies just to help seal it. Now I'm going to let that dry overnight and then do that again and then shake off the excess once that's dry.
Yo, what up? We are just hitting a workout in the garage, but I'm just checking on my little Storm AT-AT. I think I put the PVA glue on a little too thick, so they've kind of lost their texture in it, if that makes sense. Like it's not as grassy and bubbly as it is. It's kind of flat and like the little tufts are just flat.
While this was all happening, I also painted up some Stork troopers, you know, Ork stormtroopers. Yeah, they're okay. Like it was a fun little challenge. I didn't want to go too hard on these models. Like I like them for what they are, but I think I need to work on a better way to paint white. But what do you think of it? Like I'm pretty happy with it.
And not just the men, but the women. And the children too.
I reckon I could have pushed the highlights a bit brighter on the whole vehicle, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I think I'm going to make a custom scenario where the goblins have rebelled against the orcs, and this thing is just going to be plowing through some orcs, creating havoc.
For all the loyal viewers who have made it this far, here's a little sneak peek at the next Star Wars project we're working on.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
Get excited for that, and we've got a few other 3D printing projects lined up, so stay tuned for them.
If you'd like to watch another hobby related video, you can click over here. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching and happy hobbying.